They take the brunt of the acidity and the chemical toxic, molecular toxic waste. Now, we come to the importance of salt, because we talked about water in the cell, inside the cells. Now, salt has to be there in order to expand the volume of water outside of the cells. And it has many functions. It is involved in nerve cell communication. Sodium-potassium pump is involved in transmission of messages throughout the body in the nerve pathways. It is vital for absorption of food. The sodium-potassium pump is vital for absorption of all the food elements. It clears lungs. It hydrates the lung tissue. It charge shields mucus, and mucus becomes watery and becomes much easier to get rid of. Prevents muscle cramps because it takes the acid out of the cells, muscle cells. Also because it expands the circulation to the muscles and the toxic waste can be washed away. So it is vital for cramps. It is vital for maintaining the structure of bone, because when salt is there, the body manufactures hydroelectricity and doesn't need to tap into the calcium bondage in the bone structure. Not only that, but bone is a reservoir for salt. It is in fact the salt crystals. 27% of the reserves of the salt of the body is stored in the bones. It is salt crystal that gives bone its firmness and hardness. In other words, osteoporosis and osteoarthritis eventually is caused by salt deficiency as we come. Salt is vital for sleep. Anytime you can't sleep, if you drink a glass of water and put a tiny pinch of salt on your tongue, you will fall into a baby sleep for at least 4 hours without any problem. I had an experience, so that you don't think that this is a very recent thing. In 1963, I went on pilgrimage to Mecca. I was brought up as a Muslim, but I believe in all religions, so I'm faithful to all of them. Because I believe in God, and they're all His teaching. They carry His teaching. Saudi Arabian government was reluctant to release the plane that had 180 people on board. They kept it on the tarmac in that hot environment for 4 hours. 3 hours into that delay, because don't forget we were there 18 days in the heat and we were all dehydrated as a result. 3 hours into this delay, all of a sudden I heard someone shrieking, "Oh my heart, oh my heart." And there was a doctor on board, called the stewardess and said that please tell them that there is a sick person, they should send an ambulance. I immediately realized instinctively what had happened. There was containers with lemonade. I went and got a whole lot of salt and filled the whole glass with lemonade and added a lot of salt to it, shook it and gave it to him to drink. And he drank it, and within 3 minutes there was no more pain. What had happened, because we were sitting still, the only part of his body that was moving was his chest cavity and breathing. He had had cramp of the intercostal muscles because of salt deficiency. We had sweated a lot of salt out of our bodies. And once I had replaced this water and salt in the form of lemonade, that cramp went away. So salt deficiency is a very significant differential diagnostic issue in a lot of heart problems. A lot of these all of a sudden pains may be produced by dehydration, as I have experienced. I treated a person with 3 glasses of water when his pain had begun at 1 o'clock in the afternoon after lunch. When I saw him, it was 11 o'clock. He was in real, almost semi-comatose state from pain. He wouldn't respond. I shook him. I said, what's the problem? He said, my peptic ulcer disease is killing me. I said, what have you done for it? He said he had taken 3 tablets of Tagamet and a whole bottle of antacid, and nothing had worked. So when I gave him 2 glasses of water, within 10 minutes he started calming down. I gave him a 3rd glass of water. Within another 6 minutes, within 20 minutes, he was totally pain-free. So dehydration can mimic surgical complications or problems of surgical nature, because normally this person would have been rushed in America or in Britain. He would have been rushed to the hospital, and they would have opened him up to see what's happened. And of course they wouldn't have found anything because he was only thirsty. Salt is vital in extracting acidity out of the cells. In cation exchange, what happens? Sodium goes into the cell and hydrogen ion comes out. This is a silent activity. Then potassium goes into the cell and sodium comes out. So this is a cation exchange mechanism that you need salt in order to extract excess acid out of the interior of the cells and reduce, or rather take the acidity out and make the internal environment of the cell alkaline. Brain cells perform this function by having a lot of salt in their environment, because cerebrospinal fluid is no less than a very salty ocean of water around the brain. Salt is essential for balancing blood sugar. Osmotically, when there isn't enough salt, the design of the body is such that its sugar level goes up in order to osmotically draw water out of the cells and make it available for the brain, because the brain doesn't need insulin in order to metabolize the excess sugar. And water is essential for hydroelectric energy. Salt is vital for essential absorption of essential minerals. When we are short of salt, means we don't break salt down into sodium and chlorine or chloride in order to manufacture sodium bicarbonate, which is an acid neutralizer, and hydrochloric acid, which is poured in the stomach. Hydrochloric acid is vital for absorption of the essential minerals. Zinc, magnesium, manganese, selenium, copper, chromium, and molybdenum, in that order, depend on acidity inside the stomach in order to get absorbed. So, in other words, salt deficiency can directly cause mineral deficiency. That's why a lot of people in dehydration are both zinc deficient, magnesium deficient, and selenium deficient, and a lot of impotence is probably caused by this guy not being available as a result of salt deficiency. Water is vital. Salt and water are vital elements for integrity of the brain function. As you know, 85% water the brain is, and all transport systems in the nervous tissue are carried in microstreams. There is a better slide of this will come. So dehydration is responsible for loss of essential amino acids and minerals, which are ultimately the cause of a whole lot of neurological disorders and brain damage. This is a single nerve in a large bundle. It has microtubes. Microtubes are perforated cation pumps that are stuck together side by side. These microtubes act as drainage pipes in the cytoplasm that has got organized water. So it draws water and creates an area of lower viscosity, and the transporter protein moves on the microtubes that generates hydroelectric energy for transfer of this vesicle of products which have been manufactured in the nerve cell itself, but has to be carried all the way down to the extreme nerve endings. Some of these elements are on passage for months before they reach their destination. And yet this is called the fast axon transport system. That is how water is vital for nerve transmission. You need to have the raw materials in position to perform a function. In dehydration, you deplete the raw materials that are required, and that's why people tire much more easily when they are dehydrated. In dehydration and associated achlorhydria, zinc, magnesium, manganese, and selenium are the elements that become depleted. Multiple sclerosis, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, which is Lou Gehrig's disease, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, and others strongly reflect some of these mineral and amino acid deficiencies. So dehydration and salt deficiency are primary elements that are required in order to prevent neurological disorders. If you want your parents, yourselves, not to suffer later on in life from Alzheimer's disease, remember, water and salt is probably the better medications for you, preventive medications, than anything you can imagine. And they're cheap, don't cost anything. Now, salt is vital for bladder control. How many of you know people who are truly incapacitated because they can't hold their urine? They always have to wear pads. Well, salt is probably the missing element, because a lot of people drink a lot of beverages that dehydrate the body and get rid of the salt. And salt is essential for smooth muscle to become strong. This is a lady whose letter is in my book, ABC of Asthma, Allergies, and Lupus. Her name is Dotley Reed. She is a poetess. She's a very intelligent person. She delivers spare parts, 8 hours sits in the car and moves from one service station to another, delivers spare parts. She always had to carry 3 changes of clothes with her because she knew that she would need them. She had no control over her bladder. She would leak. And she came across my information on salt and started increasing her salt intake. And within 3 or 4 days, she noticed the difference. Within 8 days, she was totally dry. And this is her quotation from the book. She says, "I have a weak bladder and had even taken spare clothing as I was sure they would be needed. I arrived with not a drop of anything on my clothing. I had talked myself off salt, a bad mistake." It's a bad, sad experience that 15 million people have that? I understand that there are this number of people who have this problem and bear it with a lot of grace, but unfortunately they are suffering. So salt is a vital element. We come to the gist of what I had experienced in the prison, because